Module 4. Whmis labels. The purpose of labels is to act as the first alert to the user about the major hazards associated with that product and outline the basic precautions or safety steps that should be taken. Labels must be printed or written on or attached to the hazardous product or the container. Labels are also required to be updated within 180 days of the supplier being aware of the new information. Whmis labels must include the following. 1. The product identifier or the chemical name. 2. Initial supplier identifier, the identification information for the manufacturer. 3. Pictograms. 4. Signal words, a word used to alert the reader to a potential hazard and to indicate the severity of the hazard. 5. Hazard statements, standardized phrases which describe the nature of the hazard posed by a hazardous product. 6. Precautionary statements, standardized phrases that describe measures to be taken to minimize or prevent adverse effects resulting from exposure to a hazardous product or resulting from improper handling or storage of a hazardous product. And lastly, supplemental label information. It's important to note there are two types of labels. 1. Supplier labels. Suppliers of hazardous products are required to apply a label that meets the requirements of the hazardous products regulations. If the hazardous product is always used in the container with the supplier label, no other label is required. And 2. Workplace labels. A workplace label is required when a hazardous product is produced at the workplace and used in that workplace. A hazardous product is decanted into another container or a supplier label becomes lost or illegible. Unless the product is used right away or only one person will be in control of the product, a full workplace label is required. Changes to labels under Whmis 2015 include 1. New hazard pictograms. 2. The use of signal words. 3. The use of standardized hazard statements and precautionary statements. One of the elements that must be included on a label is a signal word. Signal words alert you about the degree or level of hazard of the product. There are only two signal words used. 1. Danger, to indicate a high-risk hazard. 2. Warning, to indicate a less severe hazard. Or there could be no signal word at all. Another element is a hazard statement. Hazard statements are brief, standardized sentences that tell you more about the exact hazard of the product. Each hazard class and category has an assigned hazard statement. Examples include: extremely flammable gas, contains gas under pressure, may explode if heated, fatal if inhaled, causes eye irritation. Precautionary statements must also be included on labels. Precautionary statements describe recommended measures to minimize or prevent adverse effects from exposure to the product. They also include information about safe handling, protective equipment, emergency responses including first aid, storage, and disposal. Examples include: keep container tightly closed, wear protective gloves, protective clothing, eye protection, face protection. If exposed, get medical attention. Additional label requirements include: 1. The pictogram, signal word, and hazard statement must be grouped together. 2. To be clearly and prominently displayed on the container. 3. To be easy to read. 4. To be in contrast with other information on the product or container. And lastly, labels must be in both official languages of Canada, English and French. Here is a sample of a label. Pause to review the label and each of the sections we discussed. When using labels, the following steps should be taken. 1. Always check to see if there is a label on the product before you use it. 2. Read, understand, and follow the instructions on the label and SDS. Follow any additional education, instructions, and training as provided by your employer. 3. Ask your supervisor if you are not sure about how to use or store the product. 4. Ask for a new label when the old one cannot be seen or read properly. And lastly, Do not use a product that is not labeled or if the label is unreadable. Ask your supervisor for help, for example, to replace the label. Now, let's explore Whmis pictograms. Pictograms are graphic images that immediately show the user of a hazardous product what type of hazard is present. For example, the flame pictograph indicates the product is flammable. Pictograms are assigned to specific hazard classes or categories and can be found on labels and SDS. The following pictograms are no longer included in Whmis 2015. The gas cylinder pictogram is used to identify gases and chemicals under pressure. The flame is used to identify fire hazards such as flammables, gases, aerosols, liquids, solids, self-reactive and self-heating substances and mixtures, organic peroxides, and more. A flame over a circle is used to identify oxidizing hazards. The skull and crossbones is used to identify acute toxicity hazards. This symbol is used to identify health hazards that may cause or are suspected of causing serious health effects. For example, carcinogenicity, reproductive toxicity, and more. The exclamation mark is used to identify hazardous products that may cause less serious health effects. For example, skin corrosion/irritation, serious eye damage, and more. This symbol is used to identify products with corrosion hazards. For example, corrosive to metals, skin corrosion, and more. The exploding bomb symbol is used to identify explosion or reactivity hazards such as self-reactive substances and mixtures and organic peroxides. And lastly, this symbol is used to identify biohazardous infectious materials which can cause disease in peoples or animals. That concludes Module 4. Please proceed to Module 5.